Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pells.
And I'm Ruth Lawrenson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started. Well, Tom, we are here on our series, The ABCs of Thriving, and I can't believe it, but we're on the letter R. We've been in this space
quite a ways down the alphabet.
We have. I think it was just before last year that we started it, at the end of the last year. And it's been brilliant, actually, just, using the alphabet and these letters to, we're both word people, so we love kind of unpacking words, and that's so important. Yeah. But understanding that these words can really bring us this wisdom into thriving. So do you want to share with the listeners what we are going to be talking about today with the letter R?
Yes. And it builds on all the things that have come before. So just listen, absorb the ABCs from the perspective of not just surviving, but thriving. Accept adversity, because it's going to happen. Believe in beneficence. Good things come. Create contentment. Defer to loving. Energize empathy. Forgive fearlessly. Give generously. Hope, homeostasis, and health. Invite intimacy. Joy in the journey. Kindness is transformational. Love to give life. Many little lives. Nominal functioning. Open to change. Poised for possibility. Quiescent questing. The R is reinforce resilience. Because along the way, while we are journeying, it can degenerate into surviving. Things wear out. We run out. But if we reinforce resilience, then we don't just survive. We thrive. Mm-hmm. So talking about reinforced resilience, some definitions.
Yeah, I love that. And so important. So before we talk, normally we talk about the first word first.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether we should just talk about resilience, the need for it. Because that's what we're saying, is that it's so important that we have resilience.
Yes.
In our journey, in our lives, that we are going to need to, if we're going to thrive, we're going to need to reinforce it. So let's talk about the why of, what is that? Why? I mean, it's obvious in some ways. I think everyone knows that there are difficulties that, I think you just mentioned, we run out. Things sometimes it's there are too many things that go wrong, or, but we actually need a certain amount of resilience in life to keep going. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit? Just the context of resilience.
And resilience is a word that many people are probably familiar with. They're going, oh yeah, resilience.
Yeah.
What's the definition? What is that actually? And it's the lack of resilience, which is an indication of death.
I mean, and we have a spectrum of people, I think, as well, who, you see some people in life who are incredibly resilient, and you can see it in them. And people remark, oh, "Wow, that was they're so resilient," and then the others really struggle with it. Like
Yes.
others give up really easily, or
Fail.
so there's a spectrum there.
Yes.
But the point is, if we are the reason why it's so important
For thriving.
if we are going to be the full healthy version of ourselves with all of the dreams and the things that our unique contribution to this world, if we're going to fulfill that, there's going to be a level of resilience that is needed. And so this isn't about striving. This is not about,
No.
this is like, I'm laughing because of the words rhyme, but this is not striving, this is thriving.
Yes.
But the point is, there is a need for healthy resilience along the way. Because things don't always work out, because there's hardships, because there's difficult times,
because things fail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have resilience, so I guess what I'm getting at, Tom, if we don't have resilience, the cost is high, because then things do fail. So this idea of reinforcing resilience is basically saying, let's safeguard this resilience in us, so that the things that are important in us that we're pursuing don't fail.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's resilience?
Yeah.
Resilience is the ability to withstand pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Resilience, the ability to withstand pressure and recover quickly.
Mm.
Withstand pressure and recover quickly. I was thinking about that terrible tragedy of that mini sub that went down to explore near the Titanic.
Yeah.
And they were using, I think it was carbon fiber, and repeated warnings of the potential for that to fail. Because while that's a very strong material, it's not built for that environment. It's not suited for that environment because it couldn't withstand the pressure. Mm-hmm. And they were attempting to make things lighter and whatever it was, but it did not have the ability to withstand the pressure of that. And without that ability to withstand the pressure, then literally there wasn't just not a recovering quickly, there was no recovering. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
So the ability to withstand pressure is a prerequisite and is inherently hand in glove with recovering quickly. Because the pressure can cause a failure that is catastrophic, and then there is no recovering. But with resilience, there is an ability to withstand pressure, and withstanding that pressure, then recovering quickly from it. Because pressure happens, like the first in the ABCs, accept adversity. Adversity happens. We can either fight against it, deny it, not deal with it, or succumb to it. But why the ABCs started with accept adversity is because things fail, things run out.
So I think, Tom, I think what's interesting there, and it just popped into my head, but I like the, say that again, the phrase for resilience.
With the ability to withstand pressure
and then recover quickly.
And recover quickly.
The thing I was going to say was, I think the difference here is what we're saying is that pressures will come, right? And then to have resilience so that you can withstand that pressure, but then you recover quickly. And I think what that says to me is that we're not meant to live in pressure. So, and the reason I say that is because I think, some of the world that we're living in, it's like the fight and flight, the stress, the constant level of pressure.
Yes.
We're not saying you need resilience. That's kind of like more superhero land, like just
Don't
be
live at the
strong.
bottom of the ocean.
No,
Don't
it's
try to
like,
do
so we're
that.
not saying that. We're not saying resilience isn't about like a hard shell that you
No.
get to live in because life's just really tough. Resilience is about this ability to withstand some of these waves of pressure that will come because of the way life is, because of adversity, but then get out and recover quickly. So does that make sense? Because I think there's a difference there with the, you know, and I think a lot of what we're saying is, no, don't stay there, like, but be prepared to weather it at times, which is what resilience is.
Yes. And so with resilience being the ability to withstand pressure and recover quickly, why reinforce gets connected with that goes into what reinforce means. So
yeah, let's talk about that because that's a fascinating. It's got a bit of a history, and and I think it's such an important word as well. You know, with
because there isn't resilience without reinforce resilience. Because things wear out, things run out. That's part of the pressure that occurs. Limited resources of time, energy, money, etc. The pressures that come with that and the ability to withstand that pressure and then to recover quickly, inherent in the recovering quickly is reinforce. So if you go back into 1200s Europe, language to enforce, because reinforce assumes that there was an enforce to start with, and then you are that. You're doing that again, to enforce again. Okay? So when we use the word now, enforce, that has a connotation that we feel something with the word enforce.
Yeah.
What do you feel when I mentioned this earlier in our pre-conversation? I mentioned the word enforce. You're going,
get the hell away from me.
Power and control and all that enforcing things.
Yeah, I mean we are so attuned now to the abuse of power in all sorts of different institutions. The idea of enforcement, things being enforced, is, you know, I think people can be very wary of that and not trust that space, you know. So yeah, it's not seen necessarily it's seen as a negative thing. It's seen as what you're gonna, you know, even just the word force, to be honest with you, you're gonna force me to do something, like, you know, that applied in that way, that's not a good thing. But enforcement is not seen as a good thing.
Right. It has often very controversial, very conflicted. Yeah. The enforcer. Okay. But if you go back to 1200 Europe and where this all started originally with the word enforce, it meant to strengthen or support something.
Yeah, wow. Which is so crazy.
It has a different feel if I say, okay, we're talking about to strengthen or support something. Yay, bring it, more, yes, please. Not enforcer. To enforce back in the 1200 Europe meant to strengthen or support.
And if that's what it means, who doesn't want a bit of enforcement? You know, that sounds amazing. You know, when you think about, oh yeah, I could do with a bit of strengthening and support right now.
So then a few hundred years later, that idea of to strengthen or support something turned into reinforce, to strengthen and to support again. So literally was to add strength to something that was weakening. So the idea with enforce is to add strength or support to something initially, and then hundreds of years later, it became associated with reinforce, to do that again, which was to add strength to something that was strong, that was supported, but now it's no longer that in some way. And so to add strength to something,
Mm-hmm.
to add support to something that was weakening.
Mm-hmm.
So to restore, for example, with fresh supplies.
Yeah.
Mother Hubbard's cupboard was bare. So to reinforce, it would be to restock Mother Hubbard's cupboard. In a military context, it was to bring in fresh supplies,
Mm-hmm.
to reinforce that.
Mm-hmm.
Where knowledge and understanding was concerned, to reinforce wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and learning. So that's what reinforce has meant.
It's interesting, isn't it, how that, I think when you say reinforce, that feels much more positive
Mm-hmm.
compared to the enforced.
Yes. So in modern usage, it's more akin to what we would associate with the word encourage.
Mm-hmm.
Encourage. There was courage, it's failing, so encourage is to put courage into. So
Reinforce is to put strength. It's to put strength back into
where something was weakening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so if we're talking about surviving and thriving, without the ability to withstand pressure and recover quickly, and part of the recovering quickly is about reinforcing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what allows to recover quickly, because in the withstanding pressure, resources are being used up.
Yeah, so I think there's so many things that come to mind here. I think, basically what we're saying is that resilience will weaken.
Yes.
So resilience is important. We need to have it to thrive. We need to have it to be the whole
That is
version.
thriving.
Yeah. But there will be times where it will be depleted, or it will weaken, or it will feel weathered. And I think one of the things, Tom, that I think is important for us all to hear is that is not failure.
No.
That is part of life. It's part of a long journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's part of being on the road for
Hence
a while.
the quiescent questing.
Yes.
Be quiescent. Enter that stillness. Because in that place of stillness, we can receive the support, the new support, the fresh supplies of strength.
And so, but I guess I think what we need to do is recognize those times. So this is like, how do we recognize those times where something's weakening, and instead of just keep pushing through and trying to, like, it's like driving a car with no gas, or something like that. Or in my case, driving a car with no battery.
Yes.
Because I've got an EV, guys. But the point is, I think at those times we need to reinforce. We need to think, well, okay, what are the supplies needed in this space? What are the things in me that keep me going, that keep that resilience on fire in me? And what are those things, and how do I allow myself to be in a time where those can be put back into me?
Yes. So resilience, there's a very common association. It's the difference between an oak and a palm tree. An oak has great strength and can be resilient to a point, but beyond that, the winds, the shock can break it. A palm tree has a soft core, and it will flex.
Wow.
And it can withstand these terrible winds. And why the difference? Because in one environment, an oak grew and would thrive, and those hard fibers inside were necessary for that environment. In another environment, it's a palm tree.
Mm.
And it's the nature of the two different trees in different environments. So it's not as though a palm tree is inherently better or superior to an oak. Put a palm tree in an oak environment and you got a dead plant.
Yeah.
It's just not going to survive the changes in temperature and that climate and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, put an oak in a place with a palm tree and the hurricane winds and tropical storms, you're not going to have a forest.
And so what we're saying is that actually it's really important for us to have some level of reflection, because our resilience will be unique to us.
Yes.
And so it won't be the resilience of another person. And actually we shouldn't be looking at other people and thinking, oh my gosh, they're really resilient, because they've got a whole different set of circumstances that they're navigating.
Yes.
And so I guess it's like, who am I? Where am I placed? And what does resilience look like for me? I love that picture of the palm tree, of just, go like flexing in the hurricane winds.
But the opposite is true too. Put that palm tree with its soft core in a place where an oak is with its hard core. They're just different pressures.
Yeah.
And the ability to withstand the different pressures, which is why one isn't inherently superior to the other, because then all plants would look like that.
So I wonder whether some of the questions, Tom, that, our listeners could be pondering right now is, what are the pressures?
Yes, what are the pressures?
What are the pressures that my life, that where I'm planted?
Yes.
What are the pressures that I encounter, and what's the type of resilience? Is it hardcore? Is it soft? Like the thing about the trees, and there's multiple. I would imagine there's multiple versions of that idea, but what type of resilience is needed to withstand those pressures? Because they're different pressures for different people. And then it's like...
And then what contributes to the ability to withstand those pressures?
Yeah.
And that changes as we journey through life. There are different pressures that occur at different stages of life. And what reinforces resilience in the challenges at different stages of life.
Yeah, and I think earlier we were talking about how, like reinforcing it does it in some ways. Like if you think about a building, for example, you build a house and you build it strong. You've got good foundations and you build it strong, and so there's materials there that have been thought through in the beginning to build the house strong, right? And then, 20 years down the road, there's weather, there's all sorts of
earthquakes.
conditions. Yeah.
Oh, wait,
and
we
there's
didn't factor that into it.
There's also, things are falling apart a little bit. So to reinforce, then there can be two things that happen. They can be going back to the material that you started out with, which could be wise, right? So there's material that...
Sure, it was strong then.
Yeah, that was already strengthened.
Let's just do that.
But sometimes what happens as well is that there's... because times progress, there might be better materials now, right?
Yes.
And so when people actually are, restoring these old houses, which I love kind of watching programs that restore all of these ancient houses, probably my English roots of these old 18th century houses. But usually there's a bit of a blend of going back to the old materials, but then also getting much more advanced, stronger materials to do the reinforcement. And so I think that's a picture, for us to think through. Obviously, we're not just talking buildings, we're talking all sorts of stuff. But when we're thinking about resilience, what is the substance of our resilience? The original material, the original substance that keeps us going. For me, that will be a word of affirmation. That will be the people in my life help me feel like I can be resilient. You know, when I know that I'm not alone. That's one thing. That's one. So instead of bricks and mortar, that for me is my bricks and mortar. You know, it's my community. It's the genuine camaraderie of friendship, and that in a month of everything going wrong, I connect with those people, and I can feel my resilience going up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's just one example, but I think that's why it's
And another example would be having something that is meaningful to do.
Yes.
It's a recent study that was done, very interesting, about the perceptions of what would fall under the category of welfare or some social support. And the perception is, and the prejudice is, that if you give people something for nothing, they'll just take and take and take. The research showed that that's actually the opposite of what occurs. Because, for instance, if someone, and there may be some of our listeners who have experienced this, if someone is in an employment situation, and for whatever reasons this developed, they're earning a paycheck and they have literally nothing to do. It's a terrible experience, and people go away from those. They don't want those. In another context, though, where someone is giving something for nothing, it's the same thing. There's no meaning in it. There's no significance. I'm not making any kind of a contribution. Yeah. And the majority of people, that support just helps them to move forward. So the whole welfare state mentality is it's a sham. It's a fallacy. It doesn't actually exist except in people's prejudices. The idea here is that give someone something and they will naturally want to do something productive and significant with it. And so if two people put them in one position where they are given no responsibilities, nothing to do, and they receive compensation for that, they don't survive. And they certainly don't thrive. In another, give them something, but it's tied to something meaningful and significant. It allows them to thrive. They will, because that's inherent in the nature of being human. We are naturally thriving creatures. There is a reason that Homo sapiens, you've heard the term, Homo sapiens. What are humans? Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
No.
We are a particular Homo sapiens. Sapiens is the word that means wisdom, wise, thinking, understanding creatures. We are Homo sapiens, but there have been a number of different Homo sapiens. I have some of those genes from Neanderthals in me who were Homo sapiens, but they were not Homo sapiens the way Neanderthals are not like the Homo sapiens, the others. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. Maybe you didn't know that.
I did not know that. This is like you learn something new every podcast. That's what I have to say.
We, as a modern species, are not just Homo sapiens. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. We are Homo sapiens wisdom. We are learners. We are thrivers. There is a reason that of all the different types of Homo sapiens that have existed, we are the ones that have survived. The Homo sapiens sapiens. We're the ones that have thrived. And the others have not even survived. And there is a wisdom in that. And I think that ties right in with reinforce resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a resilience to those Homo sapiens sapiens. And then that had to be reinforced because of the pressures that kept occurring through time on the species. And we're the one human species that survived.
Yeah.
And thrived. But hopefully, Homo sapiens sapiens won't be so stupid that we just destroy our own environment.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to do that. Whether that's an internal environment or the environment in which we exist, relationally, collectively, we can still be Homo sapiens sapiens and reinforce resilience where we have the ability to withstand those ecological and relational and sociological pressures and recover quickly from it, where others have not, and to add strength to something that is weakening. Because there's always a weakening that occurs. Adversity, stress, trauma. There's always an adversity that occurs. And that's where the wisdom, sapiens, can really come to the fore. And we reinforce resilience.
Yeah. So good. So I think my takeaway from this is quite a lot of reflection, really, of like, I think one of the questions that I would have would be, what do I need to keep going?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I need in my particular environment to withstand the pressures? What are those things that will reinforce me in those spaces?
Yes.
And that can be all sorts of things. I know I've got my little list in my head. I can clock it already. But I think I just really encourage our listeners to take a moment and think through that. You know, what are the pressures that I face? What do I need to and if you don't know what you need
in that,
yeah,
sapiens.
Yeah, and if you don't know what you need, because sometimes people don't know what they need, at least look back.
Learn.
Look back to where, you know, you were strong, or when maybe even when
you were resilient.
Yeah, when you've seen yourself be resilient in the past, what was there for you?
Excellent. Yes.
You know, that's a really helpful
brilliant.
Observation. That's a bit of wisdom. But then also be open to new things, because time has moved on and there are new ways. I mean, we were talking as we, and I think it's appropriate, Tom, before we close this conversation out, but we were talking earlier about how AHA, which of course is central to this podcast, autonomic homeostasis activation, is something that has something that both of us use to reinforce resilience. And do you want to share a little bit about I mean, I know it's a massive topic,
yes.
But just I think it is that's for me, when I think I didn't always know what AHA was. So I have had seasons where I have been resilient, and it has been based on, you know, having enough time for myself, or not burning out, or being connected with the right people, or loving myself well, or, you know, all of those things. But I see AHA as, this is an advanced material, you know, like, and I want to embrace that too, because that has really been instrumental for me as I've figured out how to be resilient.
So you thrive.
Yeah.
Yes. So just a couple of things real quick, and then I'll leave you with a teaser that you can explore intellectually. Okay. So this is about homeostasis, thriving. The enteric nervous system, survive and thrive. That part of your brain that isn't even in your skull, it's down in your gut. Survive and thrive. Homeostasis, as Scott Turner so brilliantly said, is life. And it's life that can be thriving, not just life that is surviving. Homeostasis can be about surviving, but homeostasis can be about thriving when we have the wisdom to allow the brain itself to inform that. So the other thing, and that is an infusion of strength where something has been weakening.
Mm.
And that is something that allows us to have the ability to withstand pressure and then to recover quickly. So here's one extension. And these resources that we bring are things that we have created or things that we can create. The tools that have been instrumental in our species: fire, art, spirituality, learning. These are all tools. So I'll just throw this out for the ones who are intellectually curious. With artificial intelligence, another extension in technology, the big question has been, are they sentient? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We are not homo sentient. Sentient is simply learning. We are homo sapiens. And this is not about sentience. It's about sapience. Wisdom. So I think the question might be something that we would want to rethink when it comes to artificial intelligence. Not just learning, but wisdom. We are wise animals. Let us be wise and restore resilience so that it's not just surviving, but thriving as individuals and even as a species. Just a thought.
I love that thought. That was quite brilliant, Tom, and I will...
Not the first one to have had it. It's out there. It's just not the primary paradigm of consideration.
Yeah.
And whether it's the artificial intelligence or it's our intelligence being used artificially and not naturally, that's where we restore resilience.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for this conversation. I think we've got lots to think about there, and we will get back together next time.
You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.